ANC in the Gauteng provincial legislature. We have called you here so that they can be able to take you through some of the key decisions that were taken. In the last 3 days, the ANC caucus in Gauteng held its Lekgotla, where certain decisions were taken. Without any waste of time, I'll hand over to the Chief Whip to take you through some of the key decisions that came from that Lekgotla. Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today to brief you of some of the key outcome of our first Lekgotla. This is the first Lekgotla after the elections that were held on the 8th of May. The Lekgotla was driven by a theme that was adopted, and our theme is having 3 elements. The first one is action-driven discipline and political clarity. And why those? Those came as a result of our analysis of what happened in the last elections and what the message we receive from the electorate is. And at the core of that message, we understood the electorate to having said to us as the governing party in Gauteng that they are giving us a last chance. That's what we understood, because as we went around and do the door-to-door and so on, we heard the issues that they were raising. And primarily, they were not happy with the state of our affairs in terms of how we were governing the province as such. But we also acknowledge the fact that if you look at the track record of what the provincial government has done thus far and the role that the legislature has played, there is much progress that has been achieved on quite a number of issues. But we, however, wanted to chart the way forward. Now that we have a mandate from the people of Gauteng, what's next? We then agreed that we will then take from the ANC Lekgotla itself, and we also focus on what the President would have said during the State of the Nation address. Primarily, we're informed by the manifesto of the ANC. What are the key issues that are coming from that manifesto, or the key priorities and commitment? Because our task is to translate those commitments into government program, but also ensure that there's implementation thereof. Remember, the legislature placed the 3 critical roles. One is lawmaking, the second one is oversight, and the third one is public participation. How are we going to ensure that these key priorities are done? The first priority that we agreed upon is that we need to focus on economic transformation and job creation, primarily because many of our people out there would have said to us as the ANC that they don't have jobs, and we need to do something to do that. The second one is education, skills and health. The third one is consolidating the social wage through reliable and quality basic services, special integration, human settlement and issues of local government. And I must emphasize that part of the issues we raised as a caucus that we must ensure that the provincial government invest more on local government, because we think that that's where things should be happening. When our communities are complaining of service delivery, they use local government as a yardstick for that to happen. But we also have called that there should be an integration between what provincial government is doing and the work that local government is doing. That is why we invited in this session the chief whips of the local municipalities in order for them to share some of the challenges with us, but to share with us the vision of the future as we proceed. We're also going to focus on issues of social cohesion and safe communities, and also contribute towards a capable, ethical and developmental state. We think this is one of the important issues, because if you go out there to communities, part of what communities are raising is that this government is not serving them very well. In some instances, government bureaucracy is not treating our people very well. That's why the issues of confidence get wings. and also our contribution towards a better Africa and a better world. In the context of our work as the caucus would be, what are the best practices out there that people are using to hold a government accountable? Now, the point that we want to emphasize to the people of Gauteng is that the legislature, or this caucus, is going to ensure that the legislature becomes the tribune of the people, that this legislature becomes the center at which our people would be raising their issues on, and that we become the true representatives of our people. So some of the decisions that we made is that we are going to strengthen the PCO, Parliamentary Constituency Offices, which offices are supposed to be linking the work that we are doing as government and our communities. Our assessment is that in the last 5 years, yes, indeed, work has been done through these committees, but we think that more should be done in these committees, in these offices. And we want to say, even though the PCO might appear as the ANC PCO, it is our view as this caucus that those PCO must serve the people of this province equally. In other words, nobody should be discriminated, that you can't be saved because you are not necessarily a member of the ANC, because we want to believe that those offices are necessarily meant to ensure that the government serve the citizen of this particular country. We also took a decision that we are going to strengthen the work of committees, because committees are important in holding government accountable. In other words, there shouldn't be anything that happens in the province and none of us can give an account of. But we are also going to be, because we had the Premier who also was briefing us on the kind of work that they will be doing in the next coming 5 years. We are going to have the State of the Province address tomorrow, wherein the program of Gauteng province is going to be unveiled to the people of South Africa. We said to our communities, use the 5 priorities to hold the government accountable. If the program of the province is to create jobs, we must ask those critical questions. How many jobs? From which sectors? Who are those people who are going to benefit out of that? We will also serve as a linkage between those different stakeholders. If a program in Gauteng, like TEP 1 million, is intended to benefit the young people of Gauteng, it is our work as a caucus to facilitate and ensure that we link the people, the young people of Gauteng, through the work of committees with that particular program. The objective there would be to ensure that when we say this much jobs have been created, we are able to quantify that kind of work that's going to be. So our committees are going to be strengthened, and our committees are going to ensure that they hold the MECs or departments that they will be doing work on accountable. But we also said they encourage MPLs as public representatives, because we are going to be allocating them into different constituency offices. We are going to encourage them that they must, when there are sessions of legislature, they must bring motions, petitions that has to do with the communities that they are serving. So if I'm from Ratanda, I must be able to talk about the issues of Ratanda. If I'm from Soweto in Tladi, I must be able to talk about the issues of Tladi. If I'm from Kuzong, I must be able to tell provincial government that, look, there's a possibility of sinking of houses and all of those kind of things. That is the spirit that we want to encourage. We are saying that these MPLs must be the true representative of the people, and they must be able to be held accountable. We will be holding them accountable as the office of the Chief Whip, working together with the Speaker in ensuring that all of these decisions are being implemented as such. But for us, we will also ensure that we do our work with regard to issues of political management within the province. The stability of the political stability of the province is very important to us. Therefore, we'll be engaging with the different parties that are in the legislature itself in order to ensure that at least, at minimum, there should be some things that we agree upon as different parties in Gauteng as such, to ensure that those things do happen. For instance, if we look at the priorities that are there, we will be surprised if those priorities do not receive the necessary support from the different parties that are there. So all that we are saying is that we will continue to engage with parties in order to ensure that there is some understanding of some kind, taking into account, of course, that we differ, but the point there that when coming to the people of the province, we all have to work together. And we are saying so to the parties because if you look at the election outcome, in particular the participation by the citizens of the province, as a caucus, it's a concern to us that many of our people seems not to be participating in a democracy as they are supposed to participate. And the big question would be whether people are losing confidence in public institutions like ourselves. It's something else that we need to look at. So we want to encourage political parties that with regard to ensuring that public or our citizens do participate in political processes is very important. We can't be happy that, yes, of course, elections came, we've won the elections, but many of our electorate are not participating in our processes, and therefore we're happy. That is why we're saying we want to turn the legislators to be the true parliament of our people as envisaged by the Freedom Charter itself. One of the decisions we took is that we do not want rhetorics anymore. Part of our work is that in the priorities that we have worked in, we have come up with a 2-year program that we are going to ensure that our committees focus on it in holding a government accountable. In other words, what we are saying is that in the next coming 2 years, we can't wait for 5 years to come. In the next coming 2 years, we want to see tangible changes with regard to commitments that, in particular, the Premier would be making on the first. In conclusion, we are confident that we've heard what the electorate, the people of Gauteng, have said to us. And if you look at the 3 elements of our theme, the first one being action-driven, that's very important. We are saying that time for rhetoric is over in Gauteng. Everything that is going to be presented on the table should be action-driven. We want to see the actual implementation. The second point is that the discipline. We were saying to public representatives they must conduct themselves as per the oath and commitment that they've made to the people of Gauteng. For instance, when we made those oath and commitment, we said we will owe our allegiance to the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution are we told that we should be corrupt. So we will expect the public representatives of Gauteng not to engage themselves in anything that is unethical, in anything that is corruption. So corruption will be one of our enemy number one, that in playing our oversight role, we will be intensifying. The third element, of course, is that there should be political clarity. The people of Gauteng should not second guess where we as the Parliament of Gauteng want to take Gauteng to with regard to the issues that they've raised with us. So we're calling on all public representatives that they should have a political authority on the kind of issues that our communities have raised with us. So this theme is the theme that is going to be guiding us throughout the work. I would like to give the Deputy Chief Whip to brief us on the issues of women, because we are taking the issues of women very serious. That is why the first day, that is on the 27th, the first day of this Lekgotla, we had a women's planning caucus, wherein they would have looked at a variety of issues that need to be advanced by this legislature. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, Chief Whip. Thank you, Chief Whip. I think the Women's Caucus set on the 27th, and that was the planning Lekgotla for the incoming Lekgotla in November. Why we had this Lekgotla or this planning session was that we're supposed to bring all female members of the ANC on board about the role of the Women's Caucus at the legislature, and we're together with our ANC Women's League. The plan is that what we have discovered is that some of the legislative policies are preventing women to play their role. We're coming from the campaigns, the elections campaign, and we have heard what our people are saying. And some of the roles which we need to do, or some of the reviewal which we need to do, is on the Child Maintenance Act, which was taken, I think, in 2015, but it's not implemented of garnishing those who are not maintaining their children. So we want to make that act being active, and we have also agreed that we need to encourage our women to be friends of the court so that they can support the victims. Victims of sexual harassment. We know that if you see people supporting you, you get encouraged, because the perpetrators get through and win the cases because the victim was afraid or sometimes did not have a support at the court, and they were not advised accordingly. So we're going to build those supportive system at a local level for our victims to be able to be encouraged to lay their charges and win their cases against the perpetrators. And some also of the policy which we want to be reviewed, it's one on the issues of discrimination in allocation of houses. The Act says what they want a person to have dependence, but sometimes nature prevents you to have dependence, and you need you qualify to get a house because you're not working, you don't have a house, and you are above the age of 18 for you to get a house. So it's your right. As a woman, you can't get a house because you don't have children. You have to seek support from your relatives or to any person, and that creates a conflict at the end of the day in terms of the estate when nature comes to you, that or reality that maybe you pass on this world. And also you want to encourage those women to make wills so that you can be able to when you are no longer in this world, so that the law can appoint the person which you have appointed while you are still alive as to who is supposed to take over from your estate. So those are the some of the issues which we have discussed. But also is that to induct the new MPLs, women MPLs, to understand that at the legislature there's a women's caucus, and the ANC women's caucus is leading in the establishment of the multi-party women's caucus at the legislature. So if we're not there, somebody will take that space. So we don't want that space to be occupied, except to be occupied and be led by the ANC Women's Caucus. So those are some of the issues which we have discussed. And the others, the Chief Whip has dealt with, because we're supposed to lay a foundation for EXCO to discuss, the ANC EXCO to discuss, and also the following day that the whole caucus to take decisions on.
But
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Perhaps before I allow for a question and answer session, maybe I think the one point that I think maybe the Deputy Chief can elaborate on was the issue around gender mainstreaming, as to how it fits on your agenda. I think it's important that maybe you say something around the issue of gender mainstreaming.
Okay. Thank you. On that question of the gender mainstreaming, I think we have dealt with that question thoroughly. We want all the departments, starting from the ANC, that all the issues and all the departments, they must take the issues of women seriously. And there's an outcome that we have said that we're going to re-establish the gender, or in fact, it's a GOD committee, which was held before at the legislature. By then I was not there, but when the resolution, I came in when the resolution to disband it was taking place, but after that we wanted to be reviewed and come back, and at the office of the Premier that a desk must be established again. So we have seen also that in some of the departments the issue of gender is not being taken seriously, and at the level of the high decision making we have seen that there's a lack of a senior management which are female members. So we want that a decision, or want that at that level that members, female members must be also taken seriously, that they have the right and they do qualify to occupy those positions, and that is the case on that.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. I'll just move the mics here. What we're going to do, colleagues, is that we're going to open up. We're not many here, so I think all of you probably will get a chance to ask a question or two. Pose it to the either Chief Whip or to the Deputy Chief Whip in terms of what they've presented before you. If I could say, we'll have maybe 2 rounds of questions. You can ask when you raise your hand after you're noted. Just introduce yourself and the media house you represent, and then the question, and indicate the question that you want to pose, and then either the Chief Whip and the Deputy Chief Whip will help each other in terms of responding to some of the questions. If I can see by show of hands if there are any. Okay, I think all of us. I'll start this side on my left, and then we come this way. Your second minute. No.
No, Macron from Jacaranda from Chief Whip or Deputy Chief Whip. Chief Whip, you did emphasize that people of the province have lost confidence, losing confidence in the ANC. We are seeing a pattern, especially when it comes to a move to nationalism, with the FF Plus gaining votes, especially in the rural parts of Gauteng, and the EFF gaining votes, especially in the mining communities of Gauteng. What is the ANC going to do in those parts specifically? Because the reason why voter confidence is moving in that direction is because, one, the EFF is clear on the land issue. The FF Plus is clear on the land issue, and it's also clear on the ETO issues. What is the ANC in Gauteng going to do to change those things? And again, there are reports that the ANC and the IFP might go into an alliance. If you could just clarify that for us. That's it for now.
Okay. 2 questions. And if you want to just respond to that, and then we'll go to the next question.
Oh, you want me to do that? No, thank you very much. We have observed that there is what we term the rising of the narrow African nationalism in the province itself, and generally in the country itself. Almost people want us to believe that the politics of this country is about white and black, and we want to say that's not the approach. Our strategic objective as the ANC has always been, and it will always been, to create a non-racial democratic South Africa. So the issue of non-racialism as a project is very important to us, because this rising of narrow African nationalism has a potential of creating racial tensions in our country and almost taking us back as the country. We will work very hard to ensure that we don't lose some of the programs and initiatives that our forebearers had in our country. We don't believe that 1994 was a sellout, because this rise of narrow African nationalism is intended to prove that to the people of South Africa. We don't want to believe that, and we believe that we need to ensure that we continue with the project of ensuring that we unite the people of this country beyond racial classifications. So we'll continue to do our work. That is why you will see there's a third element in our theme that talks about political clarity. It is primarily to ensure that we develop the kind of programs that will engage our society at large, and to remind them of the kind of the province we want, the kind of South Africa we want, which is largely being underpinned by the Freedom Charter. We have not abandoned that, and will continue to engage as such. On the question of land, we will continue to support the legislative processes that are taking place in our country. You will recall that the President would have said Parliament will reactivate the amendment of Section 25. We have a contribution to make particularly as caucus, through our representatives in the NCOP itself, through our representatives in Parliament. So, and we're saying that on its own is going to help us to resolve the issue of land. So generally, the issue of land has been resolved in the country. It's that process that needs to be completed. What we are saying is that we are going to be looking very closely to what the Premier is going to be saying with regard to the program that the provincial government is going to be focusing itself on, in ensuring that we're not only talking about this issue of amending Section 25, but we identify the kind of land that must be transferred back to people, and for what particular purpose. And we shall also recall, because there's a bit of confusion here, that the amendment of Section 25 is not a call for nationalization of land. It's a call for expropriation of land without compensation. In other words, if you identify land somewhere in Midrand, which land can be used for human settlement for our people, and there isn't an agreement from the owners, because some of this land you find that the people who are owning them are somewhere in America, in Europe, and so on and so on, and there's no agreement about it. What do we do? So this is going to empower us to expropriate that land and therefore give it to our people for a settlement, particularly that one of the policy consideration we came up with from this Lekgotla is that human settlement must happen. We need to change the spatial patterns of apartheid, where it took our people away from the working place, and therefore they spend a lot of money on transport and all of that. But we need to bring them closer to where the infrastructure is, there, to where the work opportunities are. And I want to believe that this issue of land is going, the Section 25 amendment is going to help us on issues like that. On the e-toll, we are very clear. We took a resolution that we don't want e-tolls. And I think that's a point we're wanting to emphasize. We will be looking very closely on how the Premier and government are going to deal with this. We take into account that it's a national competency to a certain extent. So we will be talking to the Chief Whip at the national level to relate and articulate our position and ensure that work must be done around that particular area. We want to believe that the provincial government would have heard what the people would have said, particularly that this resolution is there and our deployees on the other side understand where the ANC is standing on this particular issue. But as I said, without wanting to complicate the issue, we said we don't want these things. And we said let's found or come up with a different model on how, because remember, at the core of the e-tolls was how do we maintain the infrastructure that we've developed and that is fast developing in the province as such. It was those kind of issues. We were saying that there might be some alternative funding models that we can found to ensure that, because maintaining the infrastructure is very important, because we can't just be putting all this infrastructure, people use the roads and without paying. So we are not against the principle of user pay. We're not against it, but with regard to this one, as it relates to the e-toll, we have resolved that we don't want them.
Thank you, Chief. I think there was a hand here.
All right. Thank you so much, Muluku Mloto from ENCA. Chief Whip, you are saying time for rhetoric is over in Gauteng. I mean, the ANC has been in charge here since 1994. Are you saying that your premiers have been spewing rhetoric all along? And when interestingly, you are giving timelines. You are saying that within 2 years, you want to measure how the commitments that the Premier would have made at the State of the Province address are going. If it happens that he has not fulfilled those commitments that he would have made, for whatever reasons, are you telling us here that you are going to recall or remove or vote out your own Premier, either by initiating a motion of no confidence yourself as the ANC caucus, or will you support a motion of no confidence if it's brought by the opposition after 2 years having made an assessment of whether he is keeping his promises? Now, ma'am, on the issue of you fighting for women empowerment, you are saying that women are not appointed to senior positions in government, but your own Premier, when the African National Congress National Executive Committee said in provinces where premiers are males, there must be 6 women who are MECs. He decided to appoint a 50-50 provincial executive committee. And the ANC Women's League in Gauteng was angry. In the region of Johannesburg, it was livid. They actually said he was undermining decisions of the ANC. So why should people take you seriously when you say you will champion issues of women when your very own chairperson and Premier doesn't take those seriously, seemingly? But the last question relates to, I just want to get whether you have a comment regarding the remarks that were made recently by the former President Jacob Zuma when he said the members of the ANC Youth League should actually rebel against leaders who do not implement resolutions of the Congress. Is he wrong as far as you are concerned?
On the issue of whether if the time of rhetoric is over, we mean it. as I said, this is the sixth administration of Gauteng. And we're fresh from the election campaign itself. We have listened to the people of this province. They've raised their issues. We have seen some of the issues that they are raising and what happens. For instance, you would have incomplete projects, whether being a housing project, incomplete hostel that was supposed to be completed, but because of whatever reason that is there, and any other of such projects that are existing in our province. Look, the ANC lives amongst the people, and the ANC draw its existence from the people themselves, and therefore at all given time we should listen to what the people are saying, and our people are saying, of course we see progress. We see that there are certain things that we are doing as we requested them, but we are not happy on certain aspects of the things that we're seeing. And we want you to come up with concrete programs that are going to address these things that we're seeing. For instance, people will talk about job creation, and they say we want jobs, particularly young people are saying we want jobs and want those jobs now. Now, saying to the young people we have tap 1 million, it's not on its own adequate. We need to be saying what are the kind of programs that we are going to come up with to ensure that there's job creation in the province, and what are the targets, so that as a caucus we are able to evaluate and monitor those particular targets, and then give feedback in that regard. As I say, as the Premier is going to be speaking there, we will be listening very carefully. And the kind of things that, from our point of view, will regard them as being rhetoric, we will isolate them and we will give a feedback as such, using our own mechanism as caucus of how do we relate with our deployees on the other side in the executive as such. As I said, we have our own committees, we have subcommittees who will isolate those things and say, hey, here we believe this thing is rhetoric, it's not helping us to go forward, and therefore we are not going to accept it. Let's get focused going forward. What are the consequences? We are all guided by the policy of the ANC as a structure, and the president has made a point there that people are going to have to sign performance assessment and all of those kind of things. I'm sure we're not talking about those things for the sake of them. At the end, there should be consequences around that. You will know that caucus derives its mandate from the ANC itself and from the PEC of this particular province, and that this caucus received the manifesto of the ANC, accepted the manifesto of the ANC, and delegated this manifesto of the ANC to its different deployees, included in those deployees the Premier himself. And therefore, this caucus is expected at some point to go back to the same ANC and say, in as far as progress is concerned with regard to the issues that you have raised in the manifesto, this is how far we are. We are not able to proceed with the following because of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the problem is the deployees, be it the Premier, be it the MEC, and so on, we will present that to the ANC, and the ANC will use its mechanisms of how to deal with that. We will not go to the legislature and say a motion of no confidence. We will not do that. We have our own mechanism that helps us how to deal with a deployee that is not performing according to agreement, and all the deployees of the ANC are aware as such. So we don't need to waste the time of the people of the province utilizing their own public resources by going making motions of no confidence, whilst we have our own mechanism of how we hold our people to account. And it doesn't matter who that person is. All of them will do that. Indeed, we are working with the IFP, and we are also working with the ACDP, If you look at the committees that are established in the legislature itself, they will be chairing some of those particular committees. And as I said right at the beginning, political stability is very important to us. And everybody else who wants to work with us as the ANC to ensure that we together grow Gauteng, because one of the underlying themes that is going to be guiding us is the whole concept of growing Gauteng together. So it means everybody else who is prepared to work with us to grow Gauteng will do that. Thus far, indeed, those two organizations have shown interest that they can, and you will see that we took one of the serious committees, OCPOL, is an oversight committee to the work of the Premier. And that's the committee that we gave it over to the IFP itself. Reason being, we want to strengthen our ability to oversight the work of the executive. They will be in the position to say to us, things are not working, and they have no reason why they will babysit the Premier. Because they are not of the same party, so to say. And the other party, we're giving them the committee that deals with legislations and so on. Because part of the problem that you might find is that to what extent is the legislations that we're developing in the province helping us to transform the life of our people? To what extent are we living up to those laws that we've developed? Are we implementing these legislations that we're agreeing on? And the other things, what are the things that hamper some of the progress that must happen in communities? The Women's Caucus has identified one of them. So a mother somewhere in Davidton will not be able to get an RDP house because you don't have children. And they said, look, this legislation or this rule is discriminatory in that particular nature, and we will pay attention to it, and through that committee ensure that there are proper amendments that will enable everybody else to get their houses. With regard to the issue of what the former president would have said, I would not know what rebel would mean. But what I would agree on is that indeed all of us as deployees of the ANC must implement the resolutions. If not, what's the reason for you to become an ANC deployee if you have your own independent manifesto that you are going to implement? Remember, our resolutions are informed by the manifesto. That is why we had a session like this. And in this session, all of us were there. The Premier was here, MECs were here, and all of us have agreed that this is a plan that binds all of us, that we are going to hold each other accountable as such. I will leave the issue of the women. But you should also understand where we are, because we are the legislature. We work with what we have, that we received from the ANC itself. Because for me, it's more of a political question that regards structures. Because the Women's League would have articulated on that, and therefore we know what are the issues there.
They are positioning themselves as champions of women, so they will then have to deal with that elephant in the room if people must take them seriously. It's in that context.
Yeah.